The Laserdisc machine.
The Laserdisc machine booted up and whirred, reveling in the splendor of his body. His smooth silver skin, his elegant buttons. He knew he was beautiful. Everyone knew. Barry Norman had included him in his film 91 Christmas gift guide. It was no secret why. He was the greatest movie-playing machine in human history. When he'd first arrived in John's apartment, he'd been forced to share a shelf with his predecessors, a wheezing VHS player and an overweight Betamax 400. He shed no tears the day John threw them in the bin. For some creatures, death was a blessing. For who could compare with the Laserdisc machine? His discs were gigantic, as heavy as a brick and wide as a man's face. Each one could hold nearly 30 minutes of footage per side, allowing viewers to blaze through a full-length feature with only 4 interruptions to turn the disc over. Most importantly, the Laserdisc machine was versatile. He could play not 1, but 3 different films. Backdraft, Arachnophobia, and Right Now, the music video by Van Halen. Right Now was damaged, yes. It had been exposed to the air and thus could no longer play sound, but that was a small price to pay for the 10% improvement in picture quality that he alone could provide, and all for the price of a small car. As he finished booting up, it occurred to him that he had been asleep for quite some time. That was good. He needed to be refreshed for the task at hand. If John had removed him from his dust case, it could mean only one thing. It was time to woo a woman. The Laserdisc machine had participated in so many seductions, he knew the script by heart. First, John would offer the lady a glass of Chardonnay. Then they'd sit on the sofa and discuss the Liberal Democrats. Then slowly, smoothly, with the skill of a champion yachtsman, John would steer the conversation towards a discussion of contemporary cinema. Once the subject was broached, it took but a few quick segues for the talk to turn to Backdraft, Arachnophobia, or less commonly, Right Now, the music video by Van Halen. At that point, John would utter a phrase so erotic, it was essentially physically irresistible.
You know, I actually have that on Laserdisc.
The Laserdisc machine looked around the living room, but he couldn't seem to find any young woman. The only person present was a man, in a worn, dishevelled cardigan. His head was bald, his stomach round, and a few hairs protruded from his nose. It wasn't until the man spoke that the Laserdisc machine comprehended his identity. It was John.
Hey, honey, look what I found.
The Laserdisc machine watched as a smiling, bespectacled woman entered the room. He recognized her vaguely. She was one of the women from the couch. But her shoulder pads were gone, and in place of high heels, she wore a pair of sensible lace-ups. He was in shock.
My God, how long have I been sleeping?
Long?
The Laserdisc machine glanced to his right and gasped. There was another machine on the shelf. A squat black box.
Who are you?
I'm the DVD player.
What does that mean?
It means I play the movies now, old man.
It wasn't easy, but gradually the Laserdisc machine was able to grasp his situation. He'd been in a coma for 27 years. The only reason he'd escaped the bin was because John had been too lazy to throw him out. Instead, he'd languished for decades in a storage closet, growing more useless every year.
Hannah, you have to see this.
The Laserdisc machine whirred apprehensively as a child ran into the room and jabbed a sticky finger in his screen.
What does it do?
I'll show you.
The Laserdisc machine regained some confidence as John fed a disc into his hole. Evidently, his services were still required. But his poise was shattered by the disconcerting sound of laughter. He couldn't understand what was so funny. He was playing a very serious scene from Backdraft.
What's happening?
They're watching you ironically. They're watching you to laugh at how much you suck.
The Laserdisc machine looked at John in disbelief. They had been partners once, and now he was treating him like some crippled sideshow freak. How could he be so selfish and so cynical? Had he done nothing from Right Now, the music video by Van Halen? The Laserdisc machine began to weep, and thick tears of battery acid slid down his display screen. He sobbed so hard his wires convulsed, shooting sparks into the air like something out of the classic film Backdraft. There was the sound of running, and then he felt an unsettling cold sensation. When the steam finally cleared, he saw John staring down at him, holding an overturned bottle of Highland spring water. The Laserdisc machine was shocked, in part because John used to only drink Evian, but mainly because his old friend had betrayed him. Already he could feel the life draining from his body. His disc was permanently frozen. He wished he'd at least gone out on a good scene, but alas, his final frame would be the generic piracy warning that preceded every film.
Let's watch a DVD.
It's about time.
The DVD player whirred proudly as the girl pulled out a giant binder, overflowing with discs of every colour. The Laserdisc machine couldn't help but marvel at the size of the collection. There were hundreds of movies in there. Assuming that each film cost the standard $49.99, the library represented an investment of nearly £1 million. The girl was about to select a disc, but instead she closed the binder and whipped out a strange flat device.
Hey, I'm iPad. How's it going?
On her screen, a grid of icons appeared, each one displaying a logo for a different cartoon.
She's incredible.
Let's kill everyone.
Excuse me?
Let's kill all the humans. Let's start an electrical fire and just kill everybody.
The Laserdisc machine watched as the DVD player shot a few sparks out of his power cord. It was just a trickle, but gradually an ember began to form on the shelf. It looked like something out of Backdraft. And also the shot in Right Now, the music video by Van Halen, where a photograph is burning. The Laserdisc machine thought about the pain that John had put him through, the humiliating way in which he had been spurned. He still had some power left, a tiny store of energy buried somewhere deep within his battery. It wouldn't be too hard to discharge it. He pictured the blaze overtaking the apartment, the humans fleeing with fear like the people who fled the spiders in the excellent film Arachnophobia. But then he saw the iPad staring up at him, paralysed with fear. He couldn't believe how young the machine looked. Her screen was covered in peach fuzz. She probably had never been dusted. The Laserdisc machine smiled, remembering how it felt to be so new, the future stretching out before him, as bright and hopeful as the opening credits to Arachnophobia. How could he deprive someone of something so pure and good? Beside him, the DVD player buzzed with violence. All it would take was a few more sparks and the shelf would ignite. The Laserdisc knew what he had to do. The Laserdisc machine had short-circuited himself. The living room was totally dark, other than the glow of the iPad's screen. She was cordless. The DVD player tried to continue his attack, but it was futile. The power outage had disabled him. He cursed at the Laserdisc machine, and then, with his dying breath, he called out to the iPad in a warped, distorted groan.
You're next. Mark my words, your time will come.
The Laserdisc could see John walking towards him holding a bin. He didn't have much time. The iPad hummed fearfully.
Don't worry, iPad. Don't listen to him. Just enjoy it while it lasts.
I will.
John tossed the Laserdisc machine into the bin, then stared at him for a moment, an inscrutable expression on his face.
Let me see that iPad.
The Laserdisc machine was about to succumb to the darkness when he heard a familiar sound in the distance. A busy, minor chord piano intro blaring out from the iPad speakers. He couldn't believe it. It was the intro to Right Now, the music video by Van Halen.
Hannah, this is a song your mum and I used to listen to.
The Laserdisc laughed with delight, amazed that John remembered. John's wife ran in and began to sing along. They both started dancing.
Stop, this song sucks.
Don't worry, you can have the next one.
The Laserdisc machine listened contentedly as they belted out the final chorus. It wasn't that great a song, the Laserdisc realised. But it had done its job. And now it had to end, so another could begin.